Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Step Through the Ropes Volume 31. In the 1980s, the late Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff was a big star with his physique and also tremendous matches with Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and Tito Santana, just to name a few. But in the 1990s, he had come to WCW, first debuting in 1990 as a member of Sting's Dudes with Attitudes in NWA, which later became WCW. Orndorff was victorious over Arn Anderson at Clash of the Champions. What number was it? Clash of the Champions 11 in June of 1990, defeated Arn Anderson. Orndorff at Great American Bash 90, Orndorff teamed with Junkyard Dog and El Gigante for a six-man tag against Four Horsemen members Arn Anderson, Barry Windham, and Sid Vicious, as Orndorff, JYD, and Gigante were victorious on disqualification. And later that night, they were all at ringside. Actually, most were at ringside. Orndorff and JYD, along with the Steiner brothers, were at ringside for Sting's match with Ric Flair. He defeated him for the world title, while Gigante was handcuffed to Ole Anderson. And then, with a few months later, Orndorff ended up leaving WCW as he was a part of the UWF, run by the late Herb Abrams, and also was part of the early stages of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, run by Jim Cornette. Well, in late 1992, Orndorff had returned to WCW, and his first major program, he wrestles Cactus Jack on WCW Main Event to determine who will replace Ravishing Rick Rude in the Thunder Cage main event of Clash of the Champions 22. And during the matchup, the late Harley Race, who was at ringside, announced the match, that he kept pushing Cactus Jack back to the ring, and Cactus Jack, I guess, didn't appreciate it and jumped off the apron, nailing Race with a clothesline. He in order goes back to the ring, but out came then WCW champion Vader, and Vader, Orndorff, and Race did a number on Cactus. And in that same broadcast, pretty much Race makes the decision that Orndorff was going to replace Rude in the Thunder Cage match before Orndorff, Vader, and Race were attacked by Cactus Jack, who had a big shovel with him. And in that Thunder Cage match, which was scheduled to be Orndorff, Vader, Barry Windham, and the Barbarian taking on Sting, Ron Simmons, Dustin Rhodes, and Van Hammer. That was the initial plan. It was going to be 4-on-4, but at the beginning of that Clash of the Champions, then Executive Vice President Cowboy Bill Watts announced that Van Hammer was injured and couldn't do the show. Then, as the clash went on, Vader's team ditched the Barbarian due to his prior association with Cactus Jack. Ooh. And also in a segment that happened later on in the show, Ron Simmons disrupted Vader's interview, and Vader ended up giving Simmons 2 shoulder breakers on the floor, so it wound up being a 2-on-3 Thunder Cage, Sting and Dustin Rhodes against Vader, Orndorff, and Windham. But during the match, Cactus Jack comes to the ring with a pair of bolt cutters, and he breaks the lock, enters the cage match, and he takes his boot off, and he's wailing on Windham, Orndorff, and Vader, and Cactus eventually jumped off the top rope, hits Orndorff with the back of his head with his boot, and pinned him, enabling Cactus, officially, Sting, and Dustin to win the match. A month later, at Super Brawl 3, Cactus defeats Orndorff in a Falls Count Anywhere matchup. But then things began to turn around for Mr. Wonderful, as he took part in a 16-man tournament to crown a new World Television Champion. The belt had been vacant since the fall of 1992 due to Scott Steiner leaving the company. Orndorff, in the first round, defeated Too Cold Scorpio. In the quarterfinals, he defeated Cactus Jack. Semifinals defeats Johnny B. Bad, and in the final match defeats Eric Watts to become the World Television Champion. And it should be noted, Orndorff took part in the very first Slamboree pay-per-view. Orndorff teamed with Ravishing Rick Rude, defeating Dustin Rhodes and Kensuke Sasaki. Orndorff was slated to defend his TV championship against Ron Simmons at Clash of the Champions 23, but a groin injury prevented that from happening, and Simmons opened up the show defeating Dirty Dick Slater. Simmons finally got his opportunity against Orndorff at Beach Blast 93, where if Orndorff got disqualified, he would lose the World Television title, but unfortunately Simmons himself got disqualified, enabling Orndorff to win and retain the TV belt. That little program got ended on a sour note, if you ask me, folks. Orndorff's reign came to an end a month later at Clash of the Champions 24, as Orndorff was beaten by Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Then Orndorff, he actually was a substitute for Yoshi Kwan, another one who has since passed away, and took on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at Halloween Havoc 93, and Orndorff won by countout when the assassin, the late Jody Hamilton under a mask, also he was Nick Patrick, Jody was referee Nick Patrick's father, Jody he loaded his mask and headbutt that Steamboat on the floor, and Orndorff was victorious by countout. Then, at the first and only Battle Bowl pay-per-view, Orndorff was teaming with the Shockmaster as they defeated Steamboat and Lord Steven Regal. And then Orndorff formed a team with Paul Roma, and when Roma turned on his tag team partner Eric Watts in a match against Orndorff and Regal, and Orndorff and Roma were collectively known as Pretty Wonderful. Now, Orndorff and Roma, first they were defeated Marcus Alexander Bagwell, Tuco Scorpio at Starrcade 93. Orndorff teamed up with Rick Rude and Steve Austin, losing a steel cage match to Sting, Dustin Rhodes, and Brian Pillman at Super Brawl 4. From there, Orndorff and Roma were still teaming. Orndorff and Roma got their opportunity at the World Tag Team Championship as they defeated Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan at Bash the Beach 94. Then they lost a non-title match to the Nasty Boys a month later at the Clash of the Champions. Then they entered a program with Stars and Stripes, Marcus Alexander Bagwell and the Patriot, the late Del Wilkes, as let's just say both teams played frisbee with the belts, as Stars and Stripes eventually ended Pretty Wonderful's first reign as tag team champions. From there, Roma and Orndorff regained the belts at Halloween Havoc 94, and then a month later at a Clash of Champions, Stars and Stripes regained the belts, where if Stars and Stripes lost, the Patriot would have to remove his mask. Before Orndorff and Roma could really bounce back from that tag team title loss, it's Super Brawl in early 1995, Roma opened up the show against Alex Wright. During that matchup, Paul Orndorff came out, and I think Roma accidentally bumped into him, and Roma was pinned by Wright. But unfortunately, my understanding, Roma was fired from WCW because he was being too rough on Alex in their match, and his was not using proper facial expressions to sell Alex's offense, which pretty much signaled the end of Pretty Wonderful. Orndorff had challenged the Great Muta for the IWGP Championship at Slamboree 95 in a failed effort. Orndorff challenged the Renegade for the World TV title at Bash the Beach 95, but failed to win the belt. And then, I think about a month or so later, Orndorff got involved in a backstage fight/altercation with Vader, where many say Orndorff did a number on Vader, where I know both men have done shoot interviews, and both of them since passed away, but they both have stated different stories, where Vader got the better end of the brawl, or Orndorff did. Now, at that point, I don't know if this was a punishment for the Vader fight, but Orndorff was, Orndorff, after losing a match, he was very frustrated, and he's visited upon he gets a visit from Gary Spivey. I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. Who was I don't know if he was a psychic or a motivational speaker, and he just says to Orndorff, he kept reminding him, he said, "You are Mr. Wonderful." So Gary leaves Orndorff, and Orndorff's looking in the mirror, and he's admiring himself. He says, "I am Mr. Wonderful." And he kissed his bicep, looks in the mirror, and he says, "Thanks, Gary." And the silly part is, again, I would be surprised this was a punishment. Orndorff had come out with brand new theme music, and he's coming to the ring, admiring himself with a handheld mirror. I don't know, try to make him like Lex Luger was a few years earlier in the WWF as the narcissist. And the new music featured opera singing rejects. And they stopped mentioning Paul Orndorff. Everybody was referred to him as Mr. Wonderful. This really didn't get him too far, and I understand he kind of like floundered after that. And then it was in late 95, early 96, he was attacked by the Four Horsemen and pile-driven on the floor and seemingly suffered a neck injury, which they said ended his ring career. And Orndorff seemed like he was going to become a babyface and go after Pillman, but before any of those plans could happen, Pillman was fired from WCW for the Booker Man incident at Super Brawl 6. Orndorff then went on to become a trainer at WCW's Power Plant, which was their wrestling school. And Orndorff actually came back to WCW television in early 2000, part of the very short-lived Old Age Outlaws, which was Orndorff, Larry Zbyszko, and Terry Funk, who passed away a few months ago. And later that year, Orndorff joined forces with the Filthy Animals for a big multiple-man tag team match at the Fall Brawl pay-per-view, but unfortunately Orndorff got hurt in the match, and they stopped the match right there. I don't know if they restarted it the following night on Nitro or not. And I don't know if Orndorff stayed with WCW until it was sold. But let me know what you think, folks, on Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff's time in WCW. Was it successful, not so great, so-so? Let me know your comments. And, he was always a great wrestler and always, and he knew how to talk, too. Oh, may he rest in peace. It's been 2 years since he died. So let me know what you think about Paul Orndorff in WCW.